Right, welcome back. Now we have Anna Crowie, who's standing for camp. What skills do you think you can bring to the Assembly, and what portfolios would really interest you?
Well, I'm not a good talker, so I'm not going to be doing a lot of talking, but I think I'm a good listener, and I think that I can make sure that I understand what people have concerns about, and I can take those issues to meetings. I'm quite good in a small group at holding my own on an argument. I'm an analytical person, and I like to hear all of the information to make a decision, so I think that I'm not going to be jumping to any conclusions unnecessarily. I'm probably most interested in the education portfolio as the future of our children and the future of the islands very much depend on the education, and camp education is in need of a review in my mind. The other area would perhaps be training in immigration that I might be interested in. More to do with cultural integration rather than the actual immigration process.
Yeah. What are the main issues do you believe will be the next Assembly will have to address?
Well, there's a potential lack of funds with the oil industry looking like they're pulling out a little bit, which may make things more difficult. I have got some notes that will remind me because I'm sorry.
Yeah, welcome to
housing. Housing is an ongoing issue that we need to really catch up with the requirement for houses to get. So that's something that needs to be kept pushing forward.
Housing.
Yes, but it needs to be kept up with. The hospital is obviously quite a big problem and needs to be possibly replaced. I don't know what capital, whether capital could cope with that, but it needs some serious work doing to keep it up to standard. And the schools are not big enough for what they need to be at the moment, let alone any growth.
A number of large but essential capital projects already been scheduled or even started, such as the port, power station, Tussock House, those sort of things. Do you have any thoughts about, you mentioned the lack of funds, do you have any thoughts about how we should finance these?
I'm quite worried about the idea of running up a big debt for the port, and I'd like to think that perhaps there's some other way that we can have a port without quite such a debt. I don't know the answer to that, but I don't expect anyone expects me to have the answer to that. I'm not comfortable with the idea of the debt at all, and I can't think what other capital projects I want now.
Don't worry. A question I'm asking all the new candidates is, have you read the Constitution, and are you aware of the fact that it underpins all government decisions?
I'm aware that it underpins all government decisions, and I have an overview understanding of it. I haven't read it word for word, and I'm certainly not going to be able to quote it to you.
No, I'm not expecting you to quote anything, but one of the most common issues discussed by the electorate at the moment is salmon farming. It seems to crop up wherever you are. This could become a very valuable industry to the Falklands, but also it could create quite a few problems. Do you have any comments?
I can see that from a financial point of view, it may be quite a good prospect, but from my point of view, the risks are far too great. So we risk losing our fishing industry, the Ilex, we risk losing the wildlife that brings us tourists, much too great.
Okay. Communications and internet speeds are quite an issue, both in Stanley and Camp. How can the Falklands receive the same quality of services that are expected around the world? Because people are starting to ask.
If only I knew.
Yes.
If only I knew. I've been hearing about the Starlink arrangement. I can't see how that is going to work with I mean, we still need to have a telephone service. We can't drive out the only provider that we have in order to get this other. It would have to work together
Yes.
with something.
Yes.
I don't know very much about it because I'm not technically minded, and the internet's fine for my purposes. I don't have too much of a problem, but I don't use it very much, so it's...
Yeah. Support for camp education was criticised quite a bit in last Farmers' Week. How do you see this should be addressed?
I think that there needs to be clear policies as to what should be provided for schools, whether a school should be provided, and what equipment should be provided for farms. There are questions over, how many children should receive what level, and whether the children are all in one family, and all kinds of factors. And I don't think it's clear, really, what should be provided for whom, and it all needs a bit of a review, to say the least.
Yeah. Climate change. It's becoming quite an issue that cannot be ignored. What steps should the Falklands take to make the islands more carbon neutral? Given that renewable energy is developed considerably in recent years, would you support the development of the new power station being mainly based on renewables rather than such as solar and wind?
Oh, absolutely. If it were possible, certainly. I believe there's a storage issue, so that the storage of the energy is preventing it from being entirely renewable. So I would imagine at the moment. So I don't know what the answer is to that, but yes, if it were possible, absolutely, that would be wonderful.
The Falkland Conservation have produced a document, 2021 election, Getting Green Vote, laying out their ideas on the green election. Are you aware of the document, and would you wish to make the Falklands more aware and active on climate change and green issues?
I'm aware of the document Esther sent to me. And yes, absolutely, I would be, very much on board for anything we can do to address the climate change.
Yeah. There's been a lot of criticism recently about the level of pensions. They fall well below the living wage. In view of the fact that during their working years, many present pensioners did not have the opportunity to purchase a personal pension scheme, and for those who did, the income is derisory. How should this be addressed?
I don't know what the answer is, but there certainly needs to be a review, and we just need to make sure that there isn't anybody slipping through the net on it. To not put the pensions up last year worried me a little bit, because some people were already close to the bone. Yeah, we definitely need to review it and see who was able to get into the other pension scheme and wasn't. I mean, I know there are people who don't have any pension. I mean, it's not really, it's not something.
Well, have an old age pension, most of them, I think.
Most people do,
yes. I think so,
but,
yes. It's been suggested that some members spend too much time overseas and not enough time on local issues. Do you have any comment? And if elected, would you be willing to travel overseas to represent the Falklands?
I'd be willing to if anyone felt that I was a good representative. I would, however, choose probably not to, just because I'm not a good speaker. I have yet to learn to be a bit more of a public speaker, if that's to be.
Yeah, okay. The COVID global pandemic has created many problems within the last 18 months, although the Falklands have been able to avoid major problems, fortunately. However, it has raised the issue of how vulnerable the Falklands are to imported goods because of our isolation, reliance on shipping and everything. Should this issue be addressed?
Quite recently, there's a young couple set up a garden centre out in camp and are beginning to supply
Yes.
vegetables to the town, and I think that more of that would be really good, so that we're a bit more self-reliant. We don't have a dairy anymore. I don't know the reasons why, but if we had our own dairy and vegetable supplies, we'd be an awful lot better off in those circumstances.
Yes. Housing seems to be a problem area in lots of places. Can you see the way that how lower paid could be helped to get on the housing ladder, particularly when the cost of building plots is very high and a loan becomes so expensive that it's difficult for you to build a house on top?
I mean, the building plots are already subsidised, but I think perhaps more, subsidising more for first-time buyers, and yes, getting people onto the ladder, like you say, would certainly help a lot with the whole housing issue. Get people started.
Do you have any other further comments? We just about finished our time, but do you have any further comments?
I don't.
Quickly?
I don't. Thank you, Richard.